And now we are moving into also a very, very important part of, implementing sound teaching and learning, which is all the help you can offer. So we're going to have in this next session a presentation by Matthew from the University of Southampton, and we will finish with another way, a different way of supporting students and staff, and I will be dropping the link in the chat. Abir and Rasha have developed in their institution in Saudi Arabia an app, a proper app. So let's start with Matt. Over to you, Matt, and thank you again for presenting today.
Thank you very much, Hervé. Could I just check that you can hear me okay?
It's perfect, perfect. We can see you, we can hear you, everything works fine.
Excellent, thanks everyone. So this is a presentation about making better Blackboard help where your users need it, when they want it. My name's Matthew Deeprose. I'm the VLE manager at the University of Southampton. Been supporting Blackboard since July 2000, so almost 20 years. I was a Blackboard MVP, and now I'm a member of the Blackboard Community Leadership Circle. And this is the second of my presentations for this year's TLC. You might have seen my presentation, Blotter's Guide to Blackboard Theme Accessibility. All of the resources from both presentations are on the link that I've recently put in the chat. I'm not looking at the chat myself now, but I'll come back to any questions later. In terms of what's in scope of this presentation, it's all about the Blackboard original experience, whether you are local hosted, managed hosted, or on SaaS. But what's out of scope is Blackboard Ultra and Ultra-based navigation. And the questions that are answered by the full version of the presentation are, how can I increase engagement with our Blackboard or our e-learning support site? How can we create messaging within Blackboard that, for example, alerts users if there's a certain way we prefer them to use a tool? And that when they're within looking at a feature, that they're able to access our local support pages about that feature. And that will give them a confidence to try out features that they haven't used before, because we've got that better Blackboard help right there within the feature that they're using. And even better, in the full version of the presentation, I teach you how you can recreate this approach for your own Blackboard service using the open source building block JShack or JS Hacks, nothing more than a text or HTML editor, and with little or no technical knowledge. And as I mentioned, everything's on my supporting website, including a YouTube video with the full presentation, almost 2 hours of content, including, as you can see on the right there, a table of contents that shows all of the different kind of chapters with links to go straight to them. And so consider this the trailer to try and generate your excitement to look at the full version of the presentation. Imagine I'm using my trailer voice, and that there are explosions everywhere, like all the greatest trailers out there. So a quick poll, if Andy wouldn't mind doing a poll with 2 possible answers. Does your institution have its own Blackboard support resources, or do you just leave people to look at Blackboard's own help pages, or just to Google for the answer? It's just a quick one. If you're not sure, don't worry. Say yes if you have your own support resources. They might be on your website, on your SharePoint, or anything like that. And say if you just rely on Blackboard's own resources, say no. Just a few more seconds. And if Andy, please could you show the results? So 72 have their own resources, and 4 didn't, and 70 didn't respond. Thank you, Andy. Please close the poll. So we also have our own support resources. Our website is elearn.southampton.ac.uk. You might have looked at it yourself, because we haven't locked it away. It's not on an intranet. It's accessible worldwide, and it's actually been accessed by almost 1,400 different academic institutions, including 368 in the UK. And we have lots of content on there. But we would like our users to use our support site more. Would you like your users to use your support site more? If Andy, you could please put up a poll. Thank you very much. So if you have your own support resources and you would like users to look at them more often, say yes. And if you're totally happy with the extent to which your users use your local support resources, say no. We'll just leave that open for a few more seconds. And Andy, please could you show the results? So we had 58 who would like their users to look at their support resources more, 10 who are quite content, and 83 who haven't responded. Thank you very much, Andy. Please close the poll. So we also struggle to get our users to look at our support resources, and it's difficult to get them within your Blackboard environment. There's very few areas that you can add a link to your support resources. For example, I think the only place you can add them, especially for us, as we don't have the community add-on, we just have the pure VLE. The only place you can add a link to support resources is under global navigation. When you expand that, and there's this tiny little question mark that no one ever sees. You could customize your language packs, but that can be quite cumbersome to do, and you have to do it after each upgrade. And even if you do customize the help resources, people can turn off the Blackboard help. So if you've customized the help that was within the language pack, users might not be seeing it either. So what we developed was something that I'm calling Better Blackboard Help. It appears within the feature that you're using when you're using a Blackboard feature. For example, here, announcements. I explain what they are and with links to our local support pages. So it appears in line within the feature, right where people want to see it. It can be the content and the style is totally customizable. So here we've got green with bit of box shadow, and it could be aligned with your preferred color scheme. And it's context sensitive, so it only appears right where it's relevant to the relevant users. And it can also be used to alert users when you want them to use a feature in a certain way. For example, we haven't disabled create video because then people would say, you turned it off. Why do you keep turning things off? You hide all the good stuff that we can't use. But so I've been able to add a message saying, well, if it's a large video, I'd like you to use Panopto. If it's a small video, don't use create video, add a content item, and then embed the video using the HTML5 video feature, which is so much better. Is your institution in a country where the first language is not English? So Andy, please could you make another poll? So if you're in an institution, perhaps in Europe or outside of Europe, and the first language of the country you're based in is not English, say yes. Otherwise, for example, if the first language of your country is English, then I guess say no. And there's some cool little pictures there. I can't remember who made them, but of European countries designed like Super Mario maps. So we'll just have a few more seconds to complete that poll. Andy, if you could stop and show the results, please. So 31 are in a country where the first language is not English, and 64 are in a country where the first language is English, and 53 did not respond. Thank you very much, Andy. Please, could you stop that poll? And that's the last poll for this presentation. Thank you very much. So Better Blackboard Help can be configured in multiple languages. Here's an example from my friend Esther Munoz at eLearning Media, who provided an example in Spanish. And big thanks to my friend Marek from Blackboard, who provided me with a Polish translation. And hopefully Marek is in the chat and able to see that I've added him in there too. So what's been the impact of introducing Better Blackboard Help? Well, when I compare the start of semester, semester 1, 2019-20, so October 2019, week 0 is Freshers Week up to the end of week 4 of teaching, eLearn website had a 72% increase in hits. But we didn't only promote it in Blackboard, we're using Twitter, SharePoint, email, and so on as well. This slide, however, shows the amount of referrals where someone accessed our eLearn support site from Blackboard. And there we had a almost 2000% increase in page views that originated from our Blackboard environment. And you're probably thinking, Matt, can I do this too? And I would say to you, yes, you can. As long as you're using original experience, local hosted, managed hosted, or on SaaS. When you go to the full presentation on my support site, you'll find a video that shows you everything step by step. And basically, the only prerequisite is that you have to have the ability to follow instructions and ideally know a little bit of HTML, although I do explain everything in the video itself. And I've also shared with you all of my resources that I've created to do this and a lot more. And speaking of much more, in the full version of the presentation, you also find how we finally managed to make sure that our instructors knew how to make their courses available, and how we made it easier for instructors to do the rollover and course copy, and how we changed the message that is shown when there's no announcements on the course. The default is no announcements found, which people found quite unfriendly, and now we've got a much friendlier message. And also we'll show you how you can make the course menu automatically come back after a browser resize, which caused a lot of tickets for us before when people got confused, and much more. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. You ended up like last week very much with a fireworks. Thank you, Matt. Great presentation. And I can only recommend again, for colleagues here and delegates to go on the TLC Ultra, where you put a link to the full feature film you've made. Over an hour and 48, an hour and under 2 hours, basically, an hour and 47 something minutes. Absolutely.
Yes.
And how you got to be complimented, on how accessible the film is, because you've put signposted. So for navigation, that's really helpful. So thank you for all the amount of work you've put in behind this trailer. So I can only encourage people colleagues to go and have a look. Now, in terms of question, there was your language issue stirred lots of discussion, in Wales and Scotland as to which is English still a first language over there, so people were having a little discussion and teasing one another. I guess you don't have this issue in Southampton, and I'm trying to check in the chat if there are any questions. Some of our colleagues are using EasySoft. Have you had a look about EasySoft? I know that some universities, well, not far from Southampton, Brunel, Brunel University, have been using EasySoft and loved it. What's your take?
Yes, I do particularly admire EasySoft. We don't have it at Southampton. In some ways, I think with EasySoft, as far as I know, you kind of click on the little orange icon to be able to open it up, which will require a bit of to your users. But they can move it around, and you can still then add extra pop-ups, which I think is really nice. And what the benefits further of EasySoft is, you get to do more tracking of usage, which I don't have in my current iteration, but which in the presentation I do kind of discuss some ways that we could add to that. I think if you don't have EasySoft and you want to do something where you can get going pretty quickly within a couple of days, then have a look at my approach. But maybe EasySoft might be more scalable. I'm hoping that because EasySoft has recently become possible to use with Ultra, that the way that EasySoft has been possible to add into Ultra could be opened up to allow the building block JS hack to work with Ultra, because currently it doesn't, and that's why it also doesn't work with the Ultra base navigation. So, and I dare say you might say use the method that I've shown as a way of saying, well, this kind of requires staff time, but if we invested in EasySoft, we could do a lot more quickly. Although I would challenge everyone to give it a try, what I have shown. You might be surprised how quick you can get something going. And I've also added some areas like a shared Google spreadsheet where I've got some of the examples of how to make the help boxes appear on certain pages. You have to work out what the kind of the base part of the URL is, and that's probably the most difficult part. And so I've shared on a spreadsheet everything that I found, and I've opened it up so people could add their own. And once I get time, I'm going to be sharing all of this on the community site and hopefully encouraging other people who might like to have a play with this to then have a look and perhaps add more of the URL restrictions that they find so that we can work together to kind of build it up. I'd say it takes about an hour of my time usually, with interruptions for emails and phone calls, to do one help box for one feature. The longest part of that is working out the URL restriction. Something that I would be quite up for trying out is A/B testing, where you can say make certain boxes appear to certain subject areas and maybe use a different language or style for a different subject area. And then if you add a bit of tracking, you could then compare what type of messaging is more helpful. Or if you think in certain subject areas you'd like them to use a tool in a certain way, you could customize the help to that. And I show how to do like restrictions based on like course ID in the full version of the video. And one final thing while I'm still talking, no one's interrupted me, although it did take a lot of work to do 2 big presentations, it was based on some of the work that I've been doing this year, and I wanted to share it while it was fresh. So although it was a lot of work, it's not so fun talking about something you did 2 years ago. So I wanted to get everything out there while it's still fresh and kind of hot in my mind. I'm still enthusiastic about it, rather than something that, oh yeah, we did that last year, kind of forgot, it's not really interesting to me anymore. So hopefully someone will look at the video and enjoy it.
Yeah, no, Matt, thank you so much for this presentation, for this really engaging Q&A with you. Thank you so much. Lots of praise in the chat. You will see, regarding your website and all your resources. David as well shared what he's using for his tutorial. So a very, very engaging session. Matt, thank you so much.